Hi, everyone. Asking for introverts to raise their hands. That's awesome. I love that idea. Okay, hi. My name is Amir Shevat. I'm going to talk about 10 secrets from Slack, Google, and Amazon. I'm actually not going to talk about secrets. It's a lie. Everything that I'm going to talk about is public information, and if you do research, you can actually find it. But it's really hard to find and consolidate all that. So we'll see. At the end, we'll do an NPS and see if you're satisfied. Do you want me to do like this or something like that? Like, yay. Awesome. So this is me. I'm sorry you have to see me twice. And my role right now, I'm the VP of Developer Experience. I actually don't do DevRel. I have a DevRel team, but I also have an engineering team and a product team and a partnership team. And my job is to help developers, small developers like Blizzard, Riot, AAA games, to integrate with Twitch. But let's start with a little bit of history. This is going to be short, I promise you. So I worked at a small company called Microsoft. Before that, I had a few startups, sold one, crashed another two. And then from Microsoft, I moved to Google. It was I spent 5 years at Google. It was an awesome opportunity. Started at Google here, opened campus Tel Aviv, if you know the Google campus. That was fun. I co-founded that. And then moved to the States to run campuses and open up campuses and launchpads around the world. That was a lot of fun. Then joined a small startup. We were 100 people, not sure how to do a platform, and I was tasked to create a platform for Slack. So if you're using Slack and you have bots connected into Slack and tools connected into Slack, that's probably my team's work. And if you're bad at distinguishing between correlation and causation, you would say that I probably choose companies because of the color of their logos. But now I'm going to show you why that's not correct. So the next one was Twitch. Which is totally off the chart. How many of you use Twitch? Okay, awesome. If you don't know what Twitch is a community platform for streaming videos, specifically game videos, and it lets people play their favorite game, create a community around their game. Fortnite is one of the biggest games that we have, and have viewerships. And if you think, oh, that's a niche thing, only Fortnite has been watched in the first 6 months of this year, 17,000 years of watching. That's 2 hours per man, woman, and child in the entire European Union. Okay? And that's one game. Okay? It is an Amazon company, so I work at Amazon. It was acquired for $1 billion, close to $1 billion 3 years ago. This presentation, I'm not representing Twitch or Amazon. I'm representing myself. And again, everything is public. Because I have a lot of time, I also write books. So I wrote with O'Reilly, which is an awesome publisher. I wrote a book about bots, building conversational interface, things like Messenger bots, Slack bots, and Alexa, and Google Home bots. And recently, I just wrote another book about designing web APIs that developers love. That was fun. Okay, so I gathered a lot of, I worked in a few semi-successful companies, and learned a few things there. And I've been writing this presentation in my head for a while now. The keys, I'm going to tell you things that work really well in these companies. Some of them are conflicting between two companies, but the end goal of this presentation is to give you what successful companies do in multiple areas, and you can take and choose what you want. Some of these will work for big companies, some of these will work for small companies. But the key is to learn here and to think, what could be useful for me? How many of you work in startups? Okay, about 30%. How many of you work in big enterprises? Oh, wow, about 45.6%. And the rest are not working, or okay. Oh, one entrepreneurs, SMEs. Okay, there's a lot of just came for the cookies. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to focus on 3 things. team, product, and operations. Okay, so that's the three themes that we're going to focus these best practices on. When we talk about teams, we're going to focus on people, a word in English that I don't think is translated into Hebrew in any way called alignment. If you can think of the word, I think ishul or mashu kazeh, that sounds too military to me. Communication and leadership. Okay, so the first one, it's all about the people. If you go to any Silicon Valley company, the biggest cost is people and salaries. It is the biggest cost because hiring is very expensive, keeping people is very expensive, having bad people is very expensive. So there's a lot of aspect to make sure that you have the right set of people. So this is some of the best practices. Do spend a lot of money and time on hiring the right people. At Google, at Slack, at most of the companies in the Silicon Valley, you do between 4 and 8 interviews per candidate. That is a very, very expensive, but works really well because you have a big panel of people that met the candidate and could express their opinion. We have something called a panel, so you choose people who will interview the candidate. They all interview the candidate, and then they meet together and sit and say thumbs up, thumbs down, and there's tools that provide you that service, and then you talk about what is good about the candidate and what is challenging about the candidate. What Amazon does that I really like is a bar raiser program, and you can read about that. The idea is that one person in the panel, their job is to make sure that we're not fudging it, that we're not cheating ourselves, that this person is above the bar. Their job is basically not to hire this person unless they're amazing. Right? So make sure that you have someone in your team whose job it is. Sometimes you get into the mindset of like, oh, we have to hire, so it's okay to have not awesome people. This person, his job is only to hire awesome people. At Google and Slack, there's a process called back channeling. The process is, I'm sure in Israel we do that all the time, which is call someone who knows that person and get some information about that person. At Amazon, that's not allowed. That's a bad candidate experience, but Google and Slack do that all the time. On diversity, this is super important, and it's important in 2 aspects. One of them is to have a diverse panel. I was working at Google at the time, and we had a candidate somewhere in Europe, and 4 white men said, he's awesome. The one marketing manager said, are you crazy? He's a jerk. Hiring this person would have been a crazy mistake because he wasn't respectful for diverse people, right? So make sure that your panel is diverse and your candidate pipeline is diverse. Make sure that the people you bring in, I'm not telling you you must hire diverse people. But I'm saying for every role, you should have a diverse set of candidates, which is really important. And why is diversity important? It's not because I've lived for 5 years in the Silicon Valley and I'm politically correct. There is a study that shows that diversity contributes to productivity. Diverse teams are statistically more productive than non-diverse teams. So from a business perspective, that is good for you. Okay, now that we've hired the best, the next stage is to make sure that people stay. How many of you work in a company that has career ladders? It's very, very common in the States, but not very common in Israel. You can put your hand down, that's okay. Career ladders let people know where they are and where they can go to. This is an example of a product manager career ladder. It's really easy to hire when you have a career ladder. Because when I work with my team, they say, yeah, we're looking for an L6 PM. And I already know what's the title and what's the requirement. When people want to get promoted, they go to the career ladder and understand what are the type of requirements that they need to have in the next level. When you have growth conversation with someone, you go into the career ladder. Super, super useful. And then we're all we're all improving. Growth mindset, if you haven't read about this topic, is super important. Growth mindset is an assumption that we're not static, that you can always improve. This is something that if you give your people and if you tell your people, they actually do improve. There was a study that shows that kids that had growth mindset had better outcomes. So you develop growth mindset by providing feedback and peer bonuses, for example. At Google, there's peer bonuses. You can give a peer bonus to anyone for something good that they've done. And give feedback that is objective and focused. Don't say, hey, you're a douchebag. Say, hey, when you're using bad words when you're doing your security review, and that is not effective because people don't like to work with you then. Okay, so think about the don't pass judgment, talk about outcomes. Sorry? And you're a douchebag, yeah, sorry. Cool. Next one is alignment. Alignment is a very foreign word in Hebrew. We come from a world where it's zero-sum game in Israel. Most of our culture is zero-sum game. I win, you lose, or the other way around. Alignment is what my kids are taught in school, which is let's create a win-win-win situation. How can we create a deal that incentivizes you to work with me, where at the end, we both win? This is important in 3 areas. Working with employees and making sure that the employees are happy. Working with partners. There's many times I see Israeli startups come and they say, yeah, we have a great product, you should buy it. That's not useful at all, right? The fact that you have a great product, that's awesome. Go sell it somewhere else. The way to create an alignment is say, we think that you have this pain, and we can help you with your pain with our product. It's the same thing, only you're not focusing on yourself. You're focusing on the pain and the need of the other side. There's something called WII.FM, which is a radio station that is focused on what's in it for me. And everybody's tuned into that radio station in our mind, right? So when we're having this conversation, we're always tuned to that radio station. Always try to tune to the other person radio station. So I'm seeing a few confused faces because I'm saying alignment, issue kav in this event. I want to give you an example from Google. So here's the problem statement. Employees like to fly business. But that's expensive, and companies do not want them to fly business. And Googlers we love to fly business, and it's important to keep people happy. So Google came up with a solution that creates a perfect alignment between what they want and what the employees want, and created incentives for that. How did they do that? It's pretty complex, so walk with me. You get a budget to fly somewhere. Let's say you need to do a business trip to Paris from Tel Aviv. They say you get $500. That $500 puts you between business, but not enough. It's between business and premium economy. Now Google says this: for every dollar that you save, half of that dollar goes back to the company, and half of that dollar goes to your next flight. So now you're starting to do the math, right? I'm Israeli, going to Paris, business sucks, right? Nobody cares about business when you go to Paris because it's like old chairs and stuff like that. But when I go across the Atlantic, that's where business kicks in and the value kicks in. So I'm going to be a cheap bastard and buy all the very, very cheap flights in order to, when I cross the Atlantic, get the business flight, right? So now I'm highly motivated as a Googler to save a lot of money for my company because I'm getting the business flight, right? Now the company saves on every time I'm doing this transaction. We created a perfect alignment between the needs of the company to save money and the needs of the employees to get comfortable seating, and they work towards the company goals in a very happy place. Right? So this is an example. You could do this for everything you do. By the way, you can do it with your friends and spouses when you think about how to align incentives. So I just improved your quality of life and relationship with the world. Think about that when you do the MPS, when you get the scores. Okay. This is something that I found very useful, which is always be communicating. We have this knowledge of what we know in our mind is known, but most people outside of our world, of this world, do not have the same knowledge. It is very important to always be communicating very thoughtfully. And I want to give you a few examples. Slack has a radically transparent way of communicating. They have a Slack channel inside Slack in the company. They have a Slack channel called BizOps, and there's multiple bots that post into this bot on a daily basis. What is our ARR? What is our churn rate? How many users, new users did we get? How many users have left us? On an ongoing basis, the intern can see it and the CEO could see it. Radically transparent communication. Then there's Amazon shareholder letter. I've seen PMs quote the shareholder letter when they make product decisions. Right? So it's very important to be, because our leadership provides very clear guidance and thought when they share. Microsoft actually had an internal podcast for tech people to learn about their products. So when you're commuting, you hear about the products and get updated. So that was an awesome way to communicate. And TGIF, who here knows what TGIF is? Thank God it's Friday. So here's the quiz, and I have a prize for the person who's providing the full answer for the quiz. Which day is TGIF in Mountain View?
Thursday.
Thursday. Why Thursday?
Random guess.
Sorry?
Friday.
Sorry, the day before Friday? Okay, so the answer is yeah, you're going to get this anyway. The answer is, yay! Here, let me give you. So the answer is thoughtful communication. And when you do, in Mountain View, when you do a presentation on Friday, it's Saturday in Sydney. So thoughtful communication. You can't have that because you want to do it in the first place it is Friday in the world. Because you don't want people to come at the weekend to listen to something that is very important. For those of you who don't know what TGIF at Google is Larry and Sergey, the founders of Google, come every week, stand on stage, and speak about what's important to the company and bring VPs and other people to talk about products and updates. Think of it, every week, 52 times a year for the last 17 years. Think about the amount of money and time they spend to create that event every single time. And they do it because it works, because communication is important. Okay, so we all agree that communication is important. How can you reduce communication? Some of you say, yes, you're American, I'm not American, I'm Israeli, but you're all about communication and speaking. We're Israeli, we know what other people say. And we don't want to talk to a lot of other people, right? We're introverts, we're the 11 people that raised our hands. So what you do is you create leadership principles because vision can help you with coordination, reduce coordination. If you and I know what we both want to achieve, we need to less communicate about why we're doing something. If we're saying, hey, we're going to go there, and you say, okay, I'm going to step over there, and I'm going to step over there, it's much easier because we can say, hey, we're just going into that direction. And here's the example. So usually they come in threes: mission, vision, strategy. Sometimes mission and vision are interchangeable. Mission is your company's dream. Where are you going in the long term? And this is Google's mission, right? To organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Then there's the vision. The vision is, what are we going to do in the next 5 years? Where are we going that is tangible and that we can do in the next 5 years? And this is my team's goal, 100K developers making money on Twitch. And then there's the strategy. The strategy is how. How are we going to get there? How are we going to get to the 5-year plan in order to reach our goal and dream at the end? And this is the Google Play strategy from a few years ago. Drive 10K apps and Google Play, focus on tablets and Google TV, right? So that's a strategy to get into the mission. Okay, does that make sense? So doing this reduces communication, unnecessary communication, and provides you a better experience. Okay, so we talked about people and how to communicate to them. Let's talk a little bit about products. So the key here is working backward from the customer need. And this is also important if you're working in IT and providing product for internal customers. It's good for working with your kids and you want to give them better education, any type of thing that we do with another person, working backwards from the customer need is super important. Usually, this is the opposite of what actually happens in many companies, which is called the ivory tower syndrome. The ivory tower syndrome is a PM or a manager sitting in his ivory tower and saying, this is what is good for the masses. This is what they need. And unless you're Steve Jobs, God rest his soul, you're probably wrong. So how do you work backwards from the customer? So this is two ways of doing that. One of them is in Amazon. One of them is used at Google and at Slack. In Amazon, it's called PRFAQ. You actually start by writing the PR for the feature or product. So you actually say, hey, TechCrunch today, Twitch releases, and that's like, you give the people the understanding of what's going to be the customer value and experience. Then you write the FAQ, the frequently asked questions for your customers. Hey, will this work with this? How do I get onboarded? You actually write all the questions that your customers will have about this product, even the hard questions. There's something called rude FAQ, which is like, why? This sucks. Why are you doing this? And then you analyze the customer, and you provide at the end, you provide the spec for the product. If I review a product in my team that doesn't have a working backward document, I will demand a working backward document. When you look at the product that failed, usually managers will ask for the working backward document to see what was the thinking behind this product. Okay, so very, very important. At Google and Slack, there's something called a design sprint. There's a Udacity course that I created about design sprint. It's a free course that you can take. That Google created. And here, what you do is you bring the users and you talk to them about the pain or the need. Then you define the user need, you brainstorm solutions, and you could do voting and stuff like that, and you do a little bit of prototyping, and then you bring back the user to try your prototype. Number 1 and number 5 are critical to the process. So the 2 to 4 are a process that you can change, but 1 and 5 is super critical because you want to understand the user need and then you want them to actually test the solution to see that you're not off mark. Again, there's a course on design sprint that you can find. Okay, this is controversial, but I still believe in this. Single-threaded ownership reduces politics and makes decisions better. And this is the obligatory funny meme in every presentation. So what I think is that ownership is super, super important. If there's no ownership for products, the product is going to be probably bad. The decisions around the product are going to be bad, and there's going to be a lot of people who are opinionated that shouldn't be opinionated about the product. You should have a single for every product in Amazon and every product at Twitch by Derived. There's a single-threaded owner. A person who owns the decisions about that product. It's not metric. Some companies believe in metric ownership. We believe in a single-threaded ownership. And you need to build your company around your philosophy. So there's 2 philosophies. On the left, you have the metric management. So you have the marketing org, and you have the product org, and you have the engineering org, and maybe you have many other orgs there. And they all collaborate together. That is good, but what I find is that there's a lot of overhead in time in order to get someone to do what you want. It works in very small companies, but as you scale, it changes. When I worked here at Google Israel, I knew the legal guy because we went to coffee. So when I had legal questions, I would just say, hey, dude, this is my question. He would ask me. Now it's much harder when you work in a big company and you have this organization that you need to get support from. So the way Amazon works is that there's a single-threaded leader. Under it, you have the team that needs to support that org, and the engineering team needs to be a 2-pizza size team. So the key here is that the team shouldn't be bigger than the amount of people that can consume 2 pizzas. Now, from my perspective, I can probably consume 2 pizzas, so I don't know if I subscribe to that theory. But let's say around a slice or 2 per person for 2 people. so that you can get the order of magnitude of the size of teams. Okay. Next secret, instrument everything. Yeah, people here know what instrumentation is. So instrumentation, for those of you who don't, is putting measurements on product in a way that you can derive insights from it. So let's say I have a button, the buy button on a site. You need to instrument how many people clicked on it, how many people hovered over it, how many people double-clicked on it, how many people touched it on mobile and then moved, and what was the conversion from all these actions into actually what you want, to the top, to the bottom of the funnel. People who double-clicked on it made buy more. Or if we show a blue button, the performance is much higher than a green button. So instrument everything. This is super important because there's a key thing that is called assumption that is behind everything that we do, and you can move from assumptions to actually data if you instrument products. So my theory is that we're celebrating, when we're launching a product, we're celebrating the wrong thing, right? It's just like raising funds. I don't know why people are celebrating raising funds. It's like, yeah, we have this big debt now, and we gave away a part of our company, yay! So I still celebrate with some of my friends who raise funds, but I don't think that that's the real important thing. The real important thing is product market fit. The same thing about launching. Launching the first product is not the most important thing. Launching the second product, the second version of that product, that's where you actually start to see value. Version 1.1 is much more important than version 1. Version 1 is just learning. Hey, we think you'd like it, but if it sucks, please tell us through instrumentation. But what you learn, and a good PM and a good product person is a person that learns from instrumentation and constantly improves the product. Does that make sense? Awesome. And Google and Amazon and Slack run thousands of experiments every day. Always run A/B testing. People will tell you it's B, it's not B. Please A/B test it before you decide. Google runs multiple shades of colors on every button. I can tell you that at Slack we did an experiment that showed that people really like to click on green buttons. Even if it's canceled, they click on the green button. If it's bad for them, they click on the green buttons. So, and the shade of the green is important. So I think it's super important to always do these type of experiments, and they're ongoing. Even if you think that you've reached a place that you're happy with, continue on experimenting all the time and create green buttons. Okay, so we talked about product. Now let's talk a little bit about operations. Operations are important, and we're here to talk about DevOps, but I'm going to talk about the softer portion of operations. By the way, too fast, too slow? Perfect, you're happy? I also have a deck about my life in New Zealand. I spent 2 years there, so if this is boring, we can switch to that. Just let me know. Okay, so secret number 8, focus on outcomes, not on tasks. This is super, super important. A lot of people are married to their roadmap. They're obsessed about their roadmap. What have we launched? I hear people saying, yeah, we're launching 2 features every week. That could be a horrible, horrible experience for the customer, right? You should think about what is the right customer experience and how are you doing this. I remember having weird conversations at Slack when we told enterprises, yes, we launch features every week, and they were like, what? We're working like monthly basis or quarterly basis. You can't do that. You can't change this. We're doing training, and now you're changing the product, and we need to retrain our team. So think about how do you do this, and work backwards from the problem rather than from your task. So in Google and Slack, there's something called OKRs, Objective Key Results. And if you haven't read about OKRs, you should definitely read about OKRs. Most of the Valley uses OKRs. So you set your objective. Every quarter, you say, this is the objective thing that I need to reach, and these are the key results that I can see that I actually reached that objective. Amazon uses a different strategy for the same thing, which is we have a black box, which is reality. Here's the outputs that we want. These are the objective outputs that we want out of this black box. We can't impact the outputs, but we can create inputs. Inputs are the features and products and tasks and programs that we're going to do in order to generate this output, right? So let's say, just to make it concrete, we're going to say, hey, we want to improve conversion, or let's move it to the DevOps. We want to say, hey, we want people to deploy faster. That's the output, fast deployment. And how we're going to reach this deployment, we're going to implement this product, and we're going to write this document, and we're going to do this video showing developers how to better deploy, right? These are the output. The output is faster deployment or more clients, and the inputs are the things that I'm going to do in order to reach that target. And again, do not obsess on the roadmap. Pivots is good. Changing the plan is good on an ongoing basis. Be obsessed about your customer needs. This is another controversial thing, but I, again, still really believe in it. Mechanisms are better than good intent. You remember that story with the legal guy that I used to take for coffee? Let's say that guy leaves to another company, and now I have a person that I don't like, right? Now, all my thesis on like I'm going to get all my services kind of sucks because it was based on good intent, on the fact that I have a good relationship. I'm not telling you not to have a good relationship. What I'm telling you is build processes that work around bad relationship or work around like tribal knowledge. And here's an example. This is a radical example, and I suffixed it with do not try this at home. This is done at large-scale company. This is what Amazon does in order to create a review cycle. This is the mechanisms we do in order to reach productivity in the company and to measure productivity. On a weekly basis, I do a review with each of my directors, reviewing the tasks, the bugs, the ops, and the metrics. Every week, they are audited. On a monthly basis, we audit my entire org, and we work on what are the key initiatives that we're going to do this month, and what is my team's performance? What is my org performance? And then on a quarterly basis, we do another one, which is much bigger, which is a roadmap review. And we capture key learnings and move it to the next quarter and understand what we've done, right? So, and on a yearly basis, we look at our entire strategy. We look at where are we going? Are we in the right direction? Should we create new products? Should we kill products? And that's happening on a yearly basis. These are all mechanisms in order to make sure that we're doing the right thing instead of things that we just decided to do, right? So processes are important. Some people say, hey, this is like too much process heavy. That's okay. Your company does not need to do this. But think about what is the right processes that will help you make your life better. And the last one, people really don't like to fail. When I was interviewed to Twitch, my manager said, "So you think you're going to be successful?" I said, "I think I'm going to fail a lot, but I'm going to learn from each failure, and I'm not going to do it again." That's in my opinion. And if he would to say I don't want to, that's okay because I was transparent. I think it's super important to learn from your failures. Failure should not be, and I'm sure you're all in DevOps, servers sometimes crash, right? People sometimes crash. People write code that is not good, right? It's okay to fail. Fail is part of our life. In the Silicon Valley, if you haven't failed, something is wrong. Usually, one of the things that you say is like, yeah, I failed and I learned, and this is what I learned. And I want to show you, this is something that we do at Twitch, which is Postmortem. Postmortem is really important because it captures the thing like, what am I failing at, and how did I learn from that? So first of all, you detail the failure. People were not able to go into the site. And then you measure the customer impact, which is very important. About 10,000 people came into the site between this time, and this is the impact to the user experience, and this is the impact to our company. And then you do the 5 whys. So it's very easy. We'll play together, right? I'm going to say something. You're going to say, awesome. So people were not able to go into the site. Because our servers were overloaded. Because the database was not responding to queries. Because we deployed a new schema to the database and we didn't update the server code. So now now I'm going to say shrug. So that means that we got to the root cause. So you ask why until you get to like, yeah, that was a really bad idea. Okay? So that's the root cause of the problem. So you always write, the 5 doesn't need to be 5, it's not prescriptive. You can write anything any amount of whys until you reach the right whys, okay? Set of whys. And then more important than the why, than understanding why this has happened, we can say, hey, yeah, we didn't do that. We should probably do something about it. Okay, goodbye. And not do anything about it. And I'm sure your company doesn't do that ever, but some companies, other companies, they forget about the actual learning part, right? So the learning part is super important, and we call it so what. Okay, so we learned that this is happening. So what? So what are you going to do about it? So what you do, the next stage is like you outline. So we know that when you deploy something to the database, you also need to check if there needs to be an update to the server. So we're going to create a script that blocks updates to the database before you update the server, right? So, and we're going to run this, and it's not going to be optional, and we're going to update the manuals, and we're going to run it a part of our deployment process, right? So that is the so what. The so what is super important. And then you take this doc, and you get the highest person in the company to sign it, or the business unit to sign it, because they need to understand that the team has failed, radical transparency, and that they've learned something. So now it's an ongoing learning process. I review and sign multiple of these every month, and it's very interesting and useful because it actually reduces ongoing error rates by orders of magnitude. And then you keep it, and you know that it's there, and it's a documented learning. And if there's a new person, they could go, if they're really bored, they could go over all the old learnings and understand what's happening there. Okay, so the last point, we went through 10 secrets and best practices. The last one is just take this with a grain of salt. Look at all the learnings that I've shown you, but think about what works for my company. What can I take from here and apply to my team, to my working with other people, to the processes I have? Be thoughtful. I think that's the key learning. That's the 11th secret. If you're thoughtful, if you think about this on an ongoing basis, you will constantly improve your org, your development, and your operations. If you always think about how can I improve, what can I learn, where did I fail, and not be fearful. When I hear people saying in an interview, I never fail, I'm always right, they're either delusional or just came out of college, right? So, and they probably failed a few times there. So what I'm saying is that embrace change and embrace learning, and take these things and put them and apply them to your own company. Thank you very much. Feel free to reach out to me and ping me on Twitter. I'm very available. Thank you very much. Do you have time for questions? Yes.
What order of magnitude of a failure you do in postmortem?
So we do postmortems on everything that has customer impact. So if it's something if I have a service that fails, so services fail a lot, and we have a microservices architecture. It is okay for a service to fail multiple times if the gateway has mitigated the failure and if the user were not impacted. If there's a user impact, then we do the postmortems. So that's the order of magnitude. Yes. So the question was, sometimes you promise customers roadmap items, and then things change, and you want to stay not married to your roadmap, but you made obligations. So that is true, is a lot true very much to B2B businesses. What you do is, again, come back to alignment. What you do is say, hey, listen, we want to help you. We promised you this feature, but we actually think that solving that problem is more important to you. So we're going to delay that feature in order to give you that item of the roadmap. And let them have a conversation with them and choose with them. Never ask a user what they need, analyze their, Ford said that if people were to ask about cars, they would ask for faster horses, right? People don't know what they actually need. They know what's painful and where they want to go. So I think the key is to communicate with your partners about roadmap items and explain to them why you're doing this, right? So I think that's what, and if they say, no, we have to have this feature, then you should probably have that feature. Yes?
You mentioned career ladders.
Yes.
How do you fit people into boxes? I mean, it was a
You put them in a box. And then you push really hard.
Microsoft, the career ladder was right? How do you make it work?
So you make it work by making it something that progression. And you realize that it is a box, but it's a box that we all agree on, right? My friend Dan Ariely says that we're all unique like everyone else, right? So the key here is that if I know where I'm at, and I know my progression, I might say, hey, I have a different, I think I'm a 5, but you think I'm a 4. Let's look at this ladder and see what works, right? So I think at least it's very effective in organization I worked for, including Microsoft in Israel. But I think it's a matter of if somebody says, I'm not a place in the ladder, I'm a free human being, that's awesome, but you still need to put him, from your perspective, in one of these boxes. One last comment on that is that if you want to work for an American company, make sure you know which level they put you on. A very common mistake I see for Israelis coming to the Valley is they say, yeah, they put me on I'm a really important person, I'm a senior manager level 4. That is not a thing. So make sure that you know which level you're coming to, because it's really important. At level 4, you won't be able to manage anyone. You'll be able to manage people at level 6 and above, at least in the companies I worked for. Yes? So it's a great question. So the question is, how do you apply all these to small startups with high pressure? Take what you need, but put this as a bucket of things that you would do as you grow. Every order of magnitude of your growth will need a different set of tools. When you have one person, no career ladder. I'm the freaking CIO, CEO, and I decide everything. Then you have 10 people, and you need to start doing who's doing what. At 100 people, you start building an org. At 150, people start not knowing other people's names, so you need to have processes that get people to know each other. At 1,000, you kind of need to have like business units. So I think the key is to understand, to put this as a stack. What can I use now? And for each order of magnitude of growth, rethink your organization. I've seen many organizations that failed because they didn't realize they moved from 1,000 to 10,000. They say, yeah, everybody needs to agree. Yes, it doesn't work at 10,000. So make sure that you think about your organization as it grows. I think we have one more question we can do. Yeah. Yes.
Great processes to accomplish whether alignment or the learning processes. It seems to be a bit heavy processes. I know that you emphasize adjusting to your organization. What I'm trying to say, do you have any insights or best practices on how to balance the outcomes that you'd like to get, the learning, the alignment, with not creating too much of a headache?
Yeah, that's a great question. I heard it twice for this presentation, so I probably need to build a slide for that. The key is, what is the minimum amount of processes that you could do to be effective? That is the way I would do it. I'll give you an example. We have something in many companies called an engagement survey. So we ask our employees how happy they are with working in the company in multiple levels, right? How happy are you with your software? How happy are you with your dev tools? How happy are you with all these? And then we look at the things that are the lowest and build processes or solutions just for that. So when people say, yeah, we don't know what the strategy is, it keeps changing, and I don't know the correlation between what I do and how I contribute to the company. And I hear that multiple times. Then you need to build a process of mission, vision, strategy, and let everybody know how what they are doing connects to the work. one of the quotes I really loved is when I joined Slack, the recruiter was so excited about her job. She said, "My job is the most important thing in the company, because I contribute to you being very effective early on, so you could do your job, so people will use Slack more." So she knew exactly how her job is tied into the end goal. So always think about what is the minimum amount of processes that will solve for the problem that you're trying to achieve. Thank you very much. You're awesome.